Thank you very much, sir. Now it is my privilege and honor to invite Padma Shri Professor Natarajan sir to the dais to speak on the final overview, ethical publishing, financial disclosure and plagiarism checks. Sir is the past president of AIOS. Sir has been the editor of the Indian Journal of Ophthalmology. He is the chairman and managing director of Aditya Jodh Eye Hospital Private Limited. Sir is a fellow of the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons, Glasgow, and a fellow of the European Latino American Society of Ophthalmology. He has authored numerous chapters, published numerous articles, and been the chair and co-chair for numerous presentations. Sir, it's my honor and privilege to hear you.
Thank you. So, only thing is, I think, thank you very much. And I think after speaking, after Santosh to speak is a great problem. No? What, Santosh? And so I haven't any financial interest. So nothing is coming. So no, I don't have any financial interest, and I think so. The challenges in publishing, and publishing information from a patient-doctor relationship, editor's duty to warn of unethical clinic or a research practice, conflict of interest, open access, and global health equity. And why do ethical issues arise? Journals exist to enhance the scientific database, enhance seniority and income, pharmaceutical company profits, and publishers' profits. Points to consider: the authorship and plagiarism. I'm sorry, there's a spelling mistake here, and I have to accept that. So you have to be careful, and that's what I keep telling it. My own fellows and authorship, and I think there's a COPE is the one which everybody should read, and who can be an author, an authorship order, issues and problems with the authorship. Many times I think we have seen, I'm sure Santosh will face, like there will be some arguments between the team. And I think before you start a work, you should decide the authorship. And there is an International Committee of Medical Journals Editors called the IC378. Substantial contributions to the conception and design of a paper, or acquisition of data, or analysis and interpretation of data. Drafting the article or revising it critically for important intellectual content, and final approval of the version to be published. JAMA specifically asks so many questions on this, and then when you write no, and they'll again ask, there will be a sub thing pops up. So I think the idea is you have to be a really partner. Just because you're collecting data or just writing a reference is not, you cannot be an author or a co-author. So best practices for authorship: discuss the order of authorship at the beginning of the project, and revisit decisions on authorship during project, especially if responsibility changes, and disclose if any writing done by professional writers. Document everything in writing, and all authors take responsibility for content. So that's what I learned when I became an editor, that you are honest to yourself and also teach honesty to the people, because that finally says that you may not inadvertently do and say sorry. You have to be aware of it, and how this is, and then a redundant publication. Using text or data from another paper prior publication, usually your own, in a new paper, also called auto or self-plagiarism, and how to avoid. Do not include material from a previous study in a new one, even for statistical analysis. Repeat control groups as needed. And it happened to me, and I had to withdraw the paper when I found out. So even this time it happened in RO. My fellow didn't read, and I think it was already when they sent for publication. And I think this is a problem when you have turnover of fellows. They take something, and I think you have to be involved. Just because I am the mentor, and I cannot say they have done it. And famous thing is Dr. C.N.R. Rao, his own fellow, took a paragraph from his previous publication, without realizing that, and put it, and I think the international journal said, we will publish, saying that this was put like that, and withdrawn. So C.N.R. Rao, in spite of having all accolades in science with the Bharat Ratna, but it is a punishment. You have to take it. You cannot say sorry because the fellow did it. So that's a big lesson for all of us, including me, and that has happened. But luckily, every time I'm aware before the last minute. And duplication. If in doubt, always seek editorial advice. duplicate publication, definition, submission or a publication of the same paper or substantial parts of a paper in more than one place. And I think it's really important, because I keep telling, recheck, because the fellows who come change and they don't even check what has happened in the last year, and that's not correct. And I think you have to, people like us, we have a reputation, and I think we cannot, that's the reason supervision is really important. And how to avoid, do not submit a paper to more than one journal at a time. And I think why should we, I don't know why, I think my suggestion is only one journal you have to apply, wait for the comments, and many times if it is rejected, then you can send to another paper, another journal. Wait until your paper is rejected before submitting elsewhere, and withdraw a paper if you decide not to resubmit after being invited to do so. And data fabrication and falsification, again, that's why I said honesty. So changing or making up data in a manuscript. We found that one of the author from northern India had made one particular number, and I don't know how at that time the plagiarism software was not, we couldn't use an advanced software because of the paid software. Manually, one of my editorial board members found out, and it was a ditto, and that was in a totally a non-ophthalmology journal, which is something like a material science, and it was put in the Indian journal, and we had to withdraw that. I think Dr. Nayak's time, one was withdrawn, and my time, one has been withdrawn. So I think it's also a problem for the editor, because it's a reputation of the journal. And my suggestion is, I think the young people should learn to be honest. You make a mistake, but please don't fabricate. I mean, just because your boss is writing, maybe strict, take the punishment for not doing the number or something, but don't fabricate. And never be afraid of accepting the fact. Intent to improve the results includes digital manipulation of images, blots, micrograph, etc. So how to avoid? Present the exact results obtained. Do not withhold data that don't fit your hypothesis. Don't try to beautify images with Photoshop. Any manipulation must apply to the whole image. And I don't remember which journal, they have even asked for keep the rough notes to be kept for 5 years. I don't remember which, I don't know whether it's Nature, but I think there are some journals who ask for the whatever rough work you have done, the rough sheets has to be maintained for few years, because somebody can question, particularly if it's a path breaking. An unacceptable figure manipulation, improper editing, improper grouping, improper adjustment. Authors should not move, remove, introduce, obscure, enhance any specific feature within an image. Images should appear as captured in the lab or in the. And improper editing, boxes revealed during processing for publication, removal reveals debris. And here you see the original image and the manipulated image. And then improper grouping. Authors should not generate composite images even if obtained in a single capture unless dividing lines are inserted to make clear that the resulting image was not visible in the actual experiment. An improper adjustment. You can see the original image and the manipulated image. Authors should not adjust contrast, color, balance or brightness unless applied to the entire figures, and the adjustment does not obscure, eliminate or misrepresent the originally captured information. Adjustment should be disclosed in the figure legend. So conflicts of interest, real or perceived conflict due to employment, consulting or investment in entities with an interest in the outcome of the research, and how to avoid it. Disclose all potential conflicts to the editor and within the manuscript. I think it's very important. The reason is the reader should know whether you have a conflict of interest. Really, I think because somebody is going to read the article and some treatment to be done. So if they know that their company is paying them as a consultant, I think they will take with a pinch of salt. And that's important, because finally we are going to treat our own fellow human beings. And reviewer issues. Reviewers can also engage in unethical behavior, bias, conflict of interest, misappropriation of privileged information. Reviewers are obligated to maintain confidentiality, inform the editor if circumstances preclude an unbiased review or could represent even a perceived conflict, provide fair and collegial assessments. And who is an author? So an author is considered to be someone who has made this way, which is what I made in the first slides. So when it is time to publish, so the authorship, who will be the principal author, co-author, in what order of the manuscript, who should not be an author, and what journal, general or specialty journal, brief note, impact factor. I think Dr. Santosh covered it. Each author should have participated sufficiently in the work to take public responsibility for the content. And this participation must include conception or design or analysis and interpretation of data or both, and drafting the article or revising it for critically important intellectual content. Final approval of the version to be published. Participation solely in the collection of the data does not justify authorship, and this is published way back in 1985. Acquisition of funding, collection of data, or general supervision of research group alone does not justify authorship. And all members of the group are named as authors should fully meet the above criteria for authorship. And authorship of multi-center trials, all members of the group who are named as authors should fully meet the above criteria for authorship. And order of authors, the sequence of authors should be determined by the relative overall contribution to the manuscript. Who should be the first author, who should be the last author, and who should be the corresponding author. The order of authorship on the byline should be a joint decision of the co-authors. Authors should be prepared to explain the order in which authors are listed. Some journals now also request that one or more authors referred to as guarantors be identified as the persons who take responsibility for the integrity of the work as a whole from inception to published article and publish that information. The first author should be that person who contributed most to the work, including writing of the manuscript. Should have adapted a hypothesis, defined precise methods, participated in a major way in analysis and interpretation of results, and also written the paper. And a lead author, a person who is responsible for ensuring that all authors review and approve the final version. Co-author should have made significant contributions to the planning and execution of the research, the methods and procedures, the collection and analysis of the data, etc. And order of author's name. It's a common practice to have the senior author appear last, sometimes regardless of his or her contribution. There are two positions that count, first and the last, and attached to either position is a status associated with the being the author for correspondence. All contributions who do not meet the criteria for authorship should be listed in an acknowledgement section, who provided by purely technical help, writing assistance, department chair who provided only general support, financial and material support. And what does not count? Supervision of the first author, chair of department, chief of division, director of lab, etc., statistical advice alone, data entry, processing or management, providing or helping obtain space, money, staff, or other resources. The senior authors sometimes take responsibility for writing the paper, especially when the research student has not yet learned the skills of scientific writing. The senior author then becomes the corresponding author, but should the student be the first author? Some supervisors put their students first, others put their own names first. Perhaps it should be decided on the absolute amount of time spent on the project by the student in getting the data and the supervisor in providing help and writing the paper. Or perhaps the supervisor should be satisfied with being corresponding author regardless of time committed to the project. And how to avoid problems with authorship. Agree with your collaborators that you will follow the international guidelines. And agree before starting the research, and that's what I'm repeatedly telling, who will be an author, and if necessary discuss why each person should be an author, clarify the requirements. Agree on the tentative order of authors and who will be corresponding author. Don't add a senior author to improve the chances of publication. An author's contribution versus contributors. In reality, the best that is usually achieved is each author offers a specific expertise and all authors comment on the final draft of the manuscript. Only the primary author is truly involved in all aspects of the study. And the use of word plagiarism in the English language dates back to 1600. It is derived from the Latin word plagare, which means to kidnap. So the deliberate or reckless use of someone else's thoughts, words, or ideas as one's own without clear attribution of their source. In scientific writing, plagiarism is regarded as a serious breach of ethics. Authors have responsibility to ensure that they make due acknowledgement every time they use the idea or words or others. Editors of scientific journals also have a responsibility to discourage plagiarism. So the copyright infringement, the plagiarism, and then avoiding plagiarism is always not easy. You are for the next paper, next session. Yes. Okay. So I'm plagiarism of ideas, plagiarism and mosaic plagiarism. There are several plagiarism. You can see Jason Blair, New York Times, and this is a famous Farid Zakaria was punished for plagiarism. I mean, you can't copy your own things, and I think so. The main thing is there are anti-plagiarism software. So main thing is you have to be honest to yourself, and I think. A medical reader should avoid writing multiple separate articles if he can present a large complex study in a cohesive manner in a single article. So I think the main thing is you have to, last but not the least, if he feels he has unintentionally used somebody else's idea or text without appropriate reference, he needs to write to the editor of the journal for advice. confession is always better than to be caught stealing. So I think even if you don't know that I think you have to be aware. So this is what I want to conclude, and thank Subhangshu for giving me this opportunity to talk this subject, because this is what I keep daily talking to my students. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you all the co-instructors and all those who took time out to attend this session. I hereby conclude the session and hand over to the next